All right, people, we're doing subject area 4 instead of subject area 3 and um, skill level 1, which is pipeline operations instead of class level 3 operations. I just don't feel like up to giving an 80-page speech right now. This one's only 30, and I am interested in the Teamsters pipeline Keystone area right now with the discussions. Okay, subject area 4, pipeline operations, performing transportation operations, given the requirements to operate the tanker farm manifold valves to set up the transfer operation into in a field environmental material required to perform the task in operational tactical petroleum terminal, fuel systems, communication system, manifold system, fuel services, plug valve, wrenches, risk management, procedures, applicable material safety data sheets, personal protective equipment, facility response and plan, spill prevention control countermeasures, plans, the unit and hazardous waste, hazardous material management policies, oil discharge contingency plan, and unit tactical standings, operating procedures, TSOPDA Form 36433. C3643 daily issues of the petroleum products DA Form 27651 request for the issues in turn in DFA Form 4193 petroleum products pump stations hourly operations record DA Form 2404 equipment inspection maintenance worksheet DA Form 5988E equipment inspection maintenance worksheet EGA full access to all reference material operating the tank farm manifolds set up the transfer operation ensured that the correct line and tank valves are right in the position and open and close according to the pumping order to prevent the commonly products are maintaining fuel accountability. Performance steps. Danger. Failure to perform the task correctly may result in damage to the equipment or injury and the deaths of personnel. Notice in the text as to any of the tasks involving the extensive handling of the petroleum products. Make sure that the equipment is on the hand of the containing the cleanup spills, unpacking the inspect position of the equipment of the convenience access before beginning the task, reviewing the requirements of the task before performing it into the drip pans. Waste fuel containers are appropriate size to contain the waste fuel generated by the task. Use of the drips at any point of the spill is likely to occur. Such a valve as nozzle continually observe the equipment and take care of while the performing the task is minimizing the possibility of performing the spills. Petroleum spills. If spills occur immediately, stop operation. Take steps to contain and cleaning up the spills. Report spills immediately to the supervisor. Apply the risk procedures to execute the risk management process. Risk control and command guidance directed in the higher headquarters are assess variable continuously. Report risk reduction measures and appropriate for the chain of command. Employ the environmental stewardship protection program measures according to task 10192 F1413 to read the understanding unit installation standing operation procedures order or the requirements requisition stand or handle and disposing of hazardous materials. Where appropriate, PPE is required. The gloves, hearing protective goggles needed to be worn performing any fuel operation performed during the after operation preventive maintenance checks, services, and PMCs. Servicing components according to the appropriate technical manuals and note the DA Form 20404 and 5988E. Any faults will be found in the preventive maintenance checking services. 6. Make an internal transfer the manifold is described in pumping order to gloves and goggles and hearing protection needed to be worn performing any fuel operation, operating improved valves and manifold tanks and transferring draws off of the free bottom of the water of the tanks, operating the pumps according to task 10192 F1451, complete the DA Form 4193 transfer operations, receive issued product through the manifold as prescribed in the pumping order open the appropriate valves in the manifold tanks and transfer. Drop all free bottom of the water from the tanks. Operate the pumps according to task 10192 1451 DA Form 4193 41913 on the transfer operations DA Form 3643 and DA Form 27651 accountability of the product. Close the valve after the operation according to the pump order. Complete the turn of the DA Form 3643 DA Form 27651 DA Form 4193, DA Form 2404, DA Form 5988E to the supervisor report the completion of the transfer to the operation of the office. Evaluation, preparation, either task of the conditions. Performance measures, applied risk management procedures, and employed environmental stewardship protection programs according to task 10192F 1413 and reading, understanding unit installation, standing operating procedures or operations orders, requirements, requisition, storing, handling, and disposing of the hazardous materials, war appropriate protective equipment as required, performed before, during, and after operations, preventive maintenance checks and services on the system components according to the appropriate technical manuals as noted to the DA Form 2404, DA Form 598AE, and any fault of the found while they were performing the PMCS, making an internal transfer from the manifold as prescribed in the pumping order to receive the issued product through the manifold as prescribed in pumping order. Closed valves are often closed valves are after operating according to the pump order completed to turn the DA Form 3643 and 27651 DA and DA Form 4193 and DA Form 2404 and DA Form 59888E to your supervisor. Related completion of the transfer operations office evaluation guidance or the soldier in if all the performance measures are passed, score the soldier. If no go, then the performance measure has failed. If the soldier is no go, show the soldier that what was doing wrong and how to do it correctly. DA Forms 204, 2404, 3643, 4193, 59088E, FM 1067-1, Military Standards 3004A, and related is FM 10416, FM 3112, 104, FM 5482, TM 10 421 0235, 13 TM 53835, TM 53835222013 NP, TM 543203005 and 10. Okay, operating pipeline pumps. Given the requirements to operate the pipeline pumps on a 24-hour basis in the field, environmental personnel materials required to perform the task of military operational specific qualified NTF soldiers operating pipeline systems within 800 gallons per million mainline pumping stations or 600 gallons per million pump tactical petroleum terminal TPT fuel unit risk management procedures personal protective equipment fire extinguishers fuel sources oil rags of applicable material safety data sheets facility response plans spills prevention control countermeasures and planning. So you got spill prevention control and countermeasures and planning that unit hazardous waste hazards material HW and HM management policies oil discharge contingency ODCP a daily pumping order and a tactical standing operation procedures a TSOP DA Form 2404 equipment inspection maintenance and worksheet DA Form 598AE the Equipment Inspection Maintenance Worksheet EGA, the Department of Defense Motor Equipment Utilization Requirement, the DA Form 59887E, Motor Equipment Dispatch EGA, DA Form 4818, Petroleum Product Pump Station Operation Logs, DA Form 4193, and Petroleum Products Pumping Station Hourly Operation Recorded, the DA Form 5464, our Petroleum Products Pipeline Leakage Reported, full access to all reference and materials, performing operator maintenance operated pipelines according to established pumping orders without injury to personnel, damage to the equipment, and pollution to the environment. Standards. Performance steps. Failure to perform a task correctly may result in damage to the equipment, injury, or death to the personnel. Note if the task with any of the tasks and the task of the handling of the petroleum products, make sure that the equipment on hand has contained clean up the spills. Continually observe the equipment to take while the performing of the task. Minimize the possibility of petroleum spill. If the spill, and immediately stop operations and take the steps to stop and contain and clean up the spill. Report all spills immediately to your supervisor. Applying risk management procedure, understanding the execute risk management process, risk controls, command guidance, and directive of the higher headquarters. Assess variables, continuous and reports risks and risk reduction measures and appropriate the chain of command. Employ the environmental stewardship protection program and measures according to the tasks in 101-92-F-1413. Read them and understand the installation, standing operation procedures, operation orders, requirements for requisition, storing, handling, and disposal of hazardous materials. Where appropriate, the PPE is required. Gloves, hearing, and protective goggles needed to be worn. Performing any fuel operation, performing before, during, and after operation. Preventive maintenance check services on the system components according to the appropriate technical manuals and noted the DA Form 2404, DA Form 598AE, and any faults found in the performing the preventive maintenance check services. Operating the pump station according to the daily pumping orders, completing the DA Form 4818 and DA Form 4193 as required, maintaining communications with the dispatch office at all times, operating 600 gallon per million pumps prior to the operating pumps, put on the proper personnel protective equipment such as hearing protection goggles and gloves, starting at 600 gallons per million, transfer the flood pumps and the follows the up suction to ensure the pump line primed. If the pump requires priming, remove the dust from the primary porting of the body. Fill the pump valve chew the liquid with the pump until it reaches the bottom of the suction and replace the dust cap. Start and repeat the process while primed. Open the gate with the valve of the discharge manifold assembly. Open the ED valve, air valve cover assembly for the discharge manifold assembly. To close the discharge check valve. Align the three-way of the valve to discharge align the three-way valve to desired fuel sources. Set panel lights with switch to the bright and dim position as required. Turn the set position switch to the middle start range. Set the mode select to the switch manual position. Start the stop switch to the start position. Press the oil pass switch to hold while they engage the engine. If the engine fails to start and within 10 seconds, release the starter switch and do not attempt to start again until the starter motor stops turning. Failure to comply with the rule results in serious danger to the starter motor. Hold the starter switch up in the position until the engine starts. Continue to press the oil bypass switch and the oil pressure is greater than 40 pounds square per inch or PSI. Only once the oil pressure is greater than 40 PSI, release the oil bypass switch and check to see if the alternator light has gone out. Shut down the engine if it does not go out. After the engine starts, to observe the tachometer. Use to set the point of the control knob to adjust the engine speed approximately 800 to 900 RPMs. Open the pump suction gauge. The gauge should show a vacuum. The pump may need a prime immediately because the suction hose must fit the first of the liquid. If the pump fails to prime in 5 minutes, stop the engine. Information from the supervisor. Stop the engine and inform your supervisor. To observe the check of the valve of the discharge manifold assembly to see that the force are open when the discharge pressure indicated that the pump discharge is high enough to initiate the flow. Let the pump warm up to 3-5 minutes with the engine at the idle speed. Partially close the discharge gate of the discharge hose will slow to guard against the excessive shock pressure of the fitting of the discharge hose. Fills and open discharge gate of the valve until it is adjusted required discharge flow rate. Put pump online. Open the discharge valve with the desired suction pressure into the reach. At the same time, increase the pump engine speed at the designated RPM. Then it multiplies the pumps as are used if multiple pumps are used, operate them at all at the same RPM. Or operate the pumps before, during, an operation of the preventive maintenance check services according to TM. Take the pump offline. If the shutdown of the pump at the pack line, close the main line and the valve leading into the pump station when specified in the pressure reach. If the pump is used, take off the line in the inverse, and then they will put on the line ideal engine of the then close the pump discharge valve. Allow the pump engines to idle about 5 minutes to cool and then stop the engine. Shut down the pump with the slack line. Turn off the safety control switch. Pump on until off. And if the pump does not have a safety control switch, manually reduce the pump engine speed to the idle. Close the discharge valve. Allow the pumps to idle for 5 minutes. Then stop the engines. Close the suction valve. Perform all after operations of the preventive maintenance check services. Annoy the DA Form 2404 to the DA Form 5988E. Any deficiency, turn in your supervisor. Shut down the 600 GAP gallons per million pump. Slowly pushes the throttle control with the knob until the engine is in the idle speed. Allow the pump to idle to cool down for 30 seconds. Start and stop. The switch stops. Set the start and stop switch to stop. Turn the panel light switch off. Discharge the manifold. Close and discharge the manifold assembly gate valve to retain the liquid pump. Close the suction assembly gate valve. Perform after operations of preventive maintenance check services according to TM5 or 320-30510. Annoy the DA Form 2404, DA Form 5988, and any deficiency turning in your supervisor. Operating the 800 gallon per million pump. Prior to the operating pumps, putting all the proper personnel protection equipment such as hearing and the protection goggles and gloves. Right. Start the 800 gallon per million pump as follows. Shut off the engine. Shut the engine enclosure doors. Clutch to disengage to turn up the pump. Turn the pump shaft manually using the coupling to the gearbox. Ensure all the rotating components are free to rotate. Performance and steps. Both supply and return the three-way valves may be aligned with the same selected fuel supply auxiliary and unit tank. Aligning the different supplies could cause the engine overheating, shut down the rapid fuel exhaustion fuel system overflow, and associated fire. Allow a three-way valve with the 110-gallon fuel tank to be desired the source. Never operate the pumping accessibility unless the pumping casing is filled at the top of the suction, and the pumping will not prime when dry. Extending operation of the dry pump will destroy the seal assembly and cause the overheating, which could cause serious damage to the pump. Priming the 800 gallon per million pump ensures the drainage plug is tight and the suction valve is open. The discharge valve is closed, but place the catch basin beneath each of the air vent discharge piping located between the toolbox and the fuel tank. Fully open the two lower pump of the air vent valves. Prime the pump with the fluid to be pumped. When the fuel fluid when the fluid exists, the air vent and the discharge piping close the two lower pumps in the air vent. Fully open the two upper pumps at the air vent valves. When the fluid exits the discharging piping, close the upper air vent valves. Open the pressure switch valve. Open the suction and discharge pressure gauge valves. Open the suction discharge transducer valves. Open the suction valve. Open the four pump case of the vent valve. Set the pump or on off switch to on. Set the panel on off as required. Set control man auto switch to manual. Ensure the suction pressure is at least 20 psi. Set the RPM discharge pressure control fully clockwise. Press the engine stop switch in the push position, and press the engine start switch to keep it depressed until the engine starts, but not longer than 30 seconds. Use the starting aid of the starting engine. The temperature is below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Allow the engine to idle approximately 800 to 1,000 RPMs. Check the suction gauge for the suction pressure. Ensure the suction pressure is at least 20 psi. Run engage idle the engine. Coolant temperature reaches the minimum 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Engine to oil temperature is 10 degrees Fahrenheit or more. Each engage the clutch and the start of the pumping of the procedures. Open the discharge while the keeping of the suction pressure is 100 psi. Set up mode control the auto. Adjust the discharge pressure control to get at the proper discharge pressure. Put on the pump online discharge when the desired suction pressure is reached. At the same time, the increase of the pump in the engine is designated with the revolutions per minute. And multiple pumps are used to operate at all the same RPMs. Operate the pump and perform during the operation of the preventive maintenance check services. Take the 800 gallon per million pump offline. Shut down the 800 gallon million pump for a pack line. Close the main line valve leading into the pump station while specified with line pressure is reached. If the pumps are used to take the pumps offline in reverse order, they were put in line. In the idle engine of the pump, and then close the discharge. Allow pump that idles about 5 minutes to cool, and then stop the engine and shut down the 800 gallon per million pump for the slack line to take the safety control switch on the pump off. And if the pump does not have the safety switch, manually reduce the pump engine speed to the idle. Close the discharge valve. Allow the pumps to idle 5 minutes, and then stop the engines and close suction valves to perform the after operation of the preventive maintenance check services. And note that the DA Form 2404 to DA Form 5988 deficiencies. Turn in your supervisor. Shut down the 800 GPM pump. Turn engine discharge pressure control fully clockwise at the idle position. Allow engine to idle there for 30 seconds. Set the man auto to switch at man. Disengage the clutch. Down position. Close the pump discharge suction valves. Allow engine to idle cool for the 1 minute, and the pull engine stop switches. Set the power on and off. Set the panel from switch off to the off position. If using the closed suction valve, perform after operations preventive maintenance check services according to TM 10-432030710. Complete DA Form 2404, DA Form 5988E. Turn in to your supervisor. Complete your operations logging according to the 101-92F 1406. Turn in the supervisor evaluation preparation. See the task manual conditions and standards, and have material safety data sheets and all safety equipment. Apply risk management procedures, go or no go. Employ the environmental stewardship protection program according to the task 101-92F 1413, go or no go. Read and understand the installation or standing operating procedures, operating orders, requirement for requisition, storing, handling, and disposing of hazardous material, go or no go. Where appropriate protective equipment is required, where go or no go. Perform during and after operations of preventive maintenance check services system components according to appropriate technical manuals and noted by the DA Form 2404, DA Form 598, 5988 E defaults while performing the permanent maintenance check services. Go or no go. Operated the pump station according to the daily pumping orders. And go or no go. Operating the 600 gallon per million pump, and operating the 8 million gallon per pump. Go or no go. Completed DA Form 2404 and DA Form 5988E. Turned into the supervisor completed operations log according to text. Task 101-92-1406 turned into your supervisor. Evaluation of the soldier, and if all the measures go as passed, the score of the soldier, and no-go if performance measures failed. If the score is no-go, should the soldier have done wrong and how did he do it correctly? DO Form 2404, 4193, 48A, 18 F 5464R, 5987E, 5988E, DOD Form 1970, TM 1043230710, TM 54320300510, Field Manual 1067-1, Field Manual 3 100.12, Field Manual 3 100.4. Okay, moving on. We got 15 more pages to read, and I got about a half an hour. So, performing pipeline scraper out operations. Given the requirement to perform the scraper operations, the operational inland petroleum distribution system is in-field environmental materials required to perform the tank as operational pipeline within the 800 gallons per minute of the mainline pump station, the 600 gallons per million pump. Actually, it is actually gallons per minute. I thought it was actually gallons per million. Tactical petroleum terminal fuel units, outgoing container barrel, assembly, scraper, wrenches or rags, brushes, and containers, extinguishers, risk management procedures, personal protective equipment for the communication systems, applicable material safety data sheets, MSDS, faculty response plans, and spill control countermeasures. The unit hazardous waste and material and management policies, oil discharge contingency plans, if required, daily into the pumping and untactical standing or operating procedures. The TSOP. Fully access to all references material. The launch receive pipeline scraper to clean straight line with a straightener with the injury to the personal without injury to the personal or damaged equipment in the environment. That's the standard. The dangerous failure to perform the task correctly may result in the damage to the equipment or injury or to death of personnel. Known in the task within the involving extensive handling of petroleum product. Make sure the equipment is on the hand and contains the cleanup spills, the drip pans at any point of the spill is likely to occur, such as valves and valves. Immediately observe the equipment. Take care while the performance to minimize the possibility of petroleum spills. If the spill occurs, immediately stop the operation. Take the steps to contain and clean up the spill. Report all the spills immediately to your supervisor. 1. Apply the risk management procedure under the execution risk management process. Risk control command guidance directed higher record, higher headquarters access, variable contingency report risk reduction measures as appropriate to the chain of command. Employ environmental stewardship protection program according to task 101-92F1413. Read and understand the unit installation, standing operation procedures, operating orders, requirement requisitions, storing, handling, and disposition of hazardous materials, wearing appropriate protective as required. Gloves, hearing protection goggles need to be worn performing any fueling operation. Performance steps. Launch the scraper. Gloves, goggles, hearing protections need to be worn before performing any fuel operation. Do not outgoing cleaning the barrel. The pipeline dispatcher will schedule the actual scraper operation on a pumping order. Only to bypass the valve. Close the side of the mainline valve to block the launcher of the arrow from the mainline pump. Open the large assembly vent the valve to relieve the pressure. Open the drain valve to drain fuel of the launcher barrel to enclosure to the appropriate container. Dispose the waste fuel environmental safe manner according to the local policies and procedures. Insert the scraper into the outgoing cleaner barrel. Open the safety of the vent and then open the launcher barrel and the closure. Ensure the scraper into the launcher barrel using the side of the valve and the hand of the pace. Push the scraper as far as it will go beyond the side of the valve into the launcher barrel. Unless the scraper is pushed completely to the front of the barrel, it will not launch. Open appropriately valves of the launcher scraper. Close them tightly and close the safety vent valve and close the drain. Set the scraper indicating the pushing the flag down. Slowly open the side of the valve all the way and close the launcher assembly valve Close the launcher assembly vent valve when the barrel is full. Slowly open the main valve when told to dispatch the launcher scraper. Slowly close the bypass valve. When the scraper is indicated to show the scraper has been launched, the flag will pop up with the scraper is launched. Notify the dispatcher moment the scraper is launched. Once the bypass valve ever scraper the have carried out the launcher barrel by the fuel flow, always operate the wet barrel leaving the side of the valve mainline bypasses valve opening. Observe pipelines during the scrape operation. Take corrective action. Does not launch. The flag does not pop up. Recheck the valves according to the performance measures. Attempting to relaunch the scraper using a slight higher the pressure in the pipeline. Inform the supervisor. Wait for the further instruction. Scraper that still does not launch. Monitor scraping during the operation. Monitor scrape or launch. Monitor scraping location by either listening to the movement through the pipe or logging of the volume of the liquid pump through the pipeline. The scraper travels 1 mile from each 8,150 gallons pumped through the pipeline. Calculate the required scraper travel to receive the station. Calculate the total volume needed to remove the scraper before launching and receiving the multiple distance between the 8,185 gallons. To estimate the travel of the time in the time in minutes from the launcher to receive, divide the volume calculated above by the flat of the pipeline. Inform the receiving station accepted the variable. The arrival of the scraper. Take the correction and the scraper becomes stuck. Increase the pressure in the free scraper as directed by the dispatcher. Inform the supervisor. Wait for the further instruction to increase the pressure of the not free scraper. Do not place another scraper in the line. Free the first scraper. To free the first scraper. Receive the scraper. Performance steps. Prior to receiving the scraper, side valve, the main valve, and the bypass valve must be opened. To open the appropriate to receive the scraper, and the incoming clear of the barrel. Close the bypass valve, the scraper indicator. Open the bypass valve. The after scraper has been entered the receiver assembly. You will now need know when this happens because the flag will pop up. Close the main line and side valves of the rear receiver barrel. Open the receiver barrel vent line. Vent valve and the drain valve. Drain the valve in the sustainable container. Dispose of the environmental sound manner according to the locally established procedures. Okay, remove the scraper from the incoming, cleaning the barrel, opening the barrels of the remove the scraper, open the safety vent, then open the receiver barrel, remove the scraper, strainer within the barrel, cleaning the receiver of the barrel, strainer the strainer in the receiver barrel, close and tighten enclosure of the closed safety vent, tighten the safety vent valve and tight only close the drain valve, open side of the valve slowly to receive the assembly from the fuel and the close of the receiver of the barrel. After the receiving of the barrel is opened the main line valve, closing the bypass valve during the normal pumping operation. Leave all the valves open and should they be running with the wet barrel. Evaluation preparation. See the task conditions and standards. All right. Performance. Applied risk management procedure. Go or no go. Employed environmental stewardship protection program measures according to the task 192F 1413. Read to understand the installation standing operation procedures, operation orders, OPRDs are required requisition storing to handling disposal of hazardous materials. We appropriate the protective personnel equipment as required. Launch and scraper observed pipeline during the scraper operation. Receive the scraper. Remove the scraper from the incoming cleaner barrel. Go or no go for all 1 through 8. Evaluation score of the soldier. If performance measured to go is a go, then the score of the no-go is the performance may be measured as failure. So the score of no-go should hold the soldier was done wrong and hold it to correct it. How to correct it. The required TMs are 1061-1, 1043-2, 307-10, and related 3112 and 3104. Moving on, 10 more pages. Maintain petroleum sections. Given the requirement to assemble to maintain operational inland petroleum distribution in a field environment, the soldier assigned to the petroleum pipeline platoon must be assembled to maintain petroleum pipeline section to ensure the pipeline readiness, transportation petroleum products to support the unit's personnel and materials needed to perform the mission. 2 military occupational specialists qualified soldiers to assist the operational pipeline IPDS and pipeline section risk management procedures, applicable military safety data sheets, and personal protective equipment for extinguishers, spill containers, repair clamps over the coupling, clamping, half sandal clamps, Tools, house lining, installation, repair, assemblies, cutting and grooving the machine, pipelining, tapping, equipment, communication system type, multi-purpose wheeled vehicle, HMMWV, facility response plan, spill prevention control, countermeasures, SPCC plan, the hazardous waste and hazardous material management policy unit is standing operation of the procedure daily pumping the order is fully accessed with reference materials, assembly, monitor, and maintain the petroleum pipeline sections that ensure the leakage and the detective repairs as well as the transportation of petroleum product in support of the unit's danger. Failure to perform the task correctly is the result of damage to the equipment, danger, the death, and personnel in the task. With any of the tasks involving the extensive handling of petroleum products, make sure that the equipment is on hand containing the cleaning of skills and up on inspection position and the equipment convenient access to the beginning of the task. Remove the requirements of the task for doing the ensure the drip of the pans wasteful oil containers at the appropriate size to contain the waste fuel generated by the task. Using the drip points at any of the point of the spill is likely to occur, such that the valve and nozzles continually observe the equipment and take care of the performing the task to minimizing the possibility of petroleum spills. If the spill occurs, immediately stop operations, take steps in containing the cleaning up the spills, report all spills immediately to the supervisor, apply to the management and procedures, understanding the execute risk management process, risk control, command and guidance directed by the higher headquarters, accessible variable hazards, continuous report risk and risk reduction measures that are appropriate to the chain of the command, employ the environmental stewardship protection program measures according to text AS 101 92F 1413 read understanding the installation of standard operation orders requirement for the requisition storing, handling, and disposing of hazard materials. 4. Wear appropriate protective equipment. The gloves, hearing protection, goggles needed to be worn performing any fueling operation. And performing services on the pipeline valve gate valve. Lubricate the threads within the fine film of the motor oil, which is non-soilable water. Do not use the grease. It can harden, collect sand and dirt and threads. Repack the necessary. Close the valve completely to keep the fluid in line. Remove the hand and the wheel nut hand on the non-rising steam gate valves. Skip these step rises and skip gate valves. Remove the packaging nuts. Remove packaging flange and glands. Remove the old packaging from the stuffing box, and when the packing of the tool and clean stuffing box, coat a new piece of graphite, spiral graphite rings to fit the stuffing of the box. The old packing of the cutting guide, and the rings are cut into the rings so that the end of them exactly coil the new piece of the graphite into the stuffing in the box in the place of the rings on top of another in such a way that the ends of each layer meets on the opposite side of the stem of the previous layer. Force packing of the down and firmly placed. Put the gland packaging and packaging the nuts back into place. Alternate tightening nuts back off the nuts until they are a little bit more than hand tight. Put a hand wheel and hand wheel nuts back into place. Tighten the nut and open the valve and check the leaks. If necessary, adjust the packing nuts to stop the leak. Globe valve replacing packaging figure 1. Make sure the valve is closed. Remove the hand wheel and hand nut. Remove the packaging nut and gland. Remove the old packaging and the packaging tool and hook. Cut a new piece of the graphite spiral ring in to fit it. And for old packing of the cutting guide, cut the rings so that the end is meet exactly. Coil new pieces of the graphite in place of the rings at the top of the one. Coiling a new graphite in place of the rings on the top of the one another, so that the end is either the layer meets the opposite side of the stem from the previous layer. Force packaging down them further into place. Putting gland packing the nut back into the place. Tighten them. Put the hand wheel and the hand wheel nut back into place and tighten nut. This is a picture of a valve. If you study the Navy Trot, this is a basic valve. Hand wheel nut, stem, packaging nut, gland, packaging bonnet, union bonnet ring, disc holder, disc and body, disc closing. Plug valves. Now rising steam gate valve. Check the lubricant to make sure the free of dirt and sand of any form of material that could clog the lubrication grooves that acts as the abrasive between the plug and the body. Remove the lubricant screw. The lubricant is replace the screw. Tighten the screw for the force of the lubricant down in all the parts of the valve. 1 of the 2/6 of the 4 strokes of the grease gun should be also when needed. Do not overdo because any excessive lubrication will pass on the line. Operate the valve in the moment to check the lubrication of the valve lubricated and if the plug is turned in easily. Here's another picture of the valve. Back out this into 125. You see the hand wheel, stem, gland flange, gland bolt nuts, stuffing box, stem packaging, stuffing basket, bonnet, gasket, bonnet, belt, bolts, body, upper wedge of the wedge bushing, upper wedge of the seating ring and disc, and lower wedge in Figure 2. Checking the valves and tightening and covering the nuts regularly. Cover the studs and nuts. Cover the body and cover the disc with a hinge attachment disc and seating of the ring. Hinge and arm and hinge and hinge and side and pin. Here's another one. Check the 300 degrees ANSI and lifting leg flanging to the groove adapter. Reducing the valve, inspecting the small strainer and pilot tube of the last every 3 months. If the strainer becomes clogged, we'll valve the malfunction, clean the strainer and the necessary. Remove the diaphragm. Inspect once a year for the wear and brief and synthetic rubber material. If the diagram ruptures the brakes, open the valve can close automatically. Here's another picture of one. This is Figure 4. Conduct the patrols on pipelines to check the damage of the leaks and the indication of the pilferage. Notify the supervisors of any leaks of the pipeline. Fill out the DA Form 5464 R Petroleum Products Pipeline Leakage Report according to the task 10192 F1406. Perform temporary repairs as required using half-saddle clamps and repair clamps and overcoupling clamp. The rear repair clamp and overcoupling clamp are components with the IPDS systems and is not necessary to stop pumping operations while repairing clamps are being installed. If install half a saddle clamp, Figure 5. By placing a saddle half of the clamp around the pipeline to cover the leak for the gasket, saddle the clamp to the stirrups and around the pipeline along with the side half. Place the nuts on the side end of the side stirrups and tighten the nuts. Install the rear repair clamp. Place one of the half under the pipeline into the hole. Place up the upper half of the clamp with no longer in the bolt center. Place the upper half of the clamp over the bottom of the half of the aligned bolts. Place the nuts on the bolts, tighten the center of the bolts first. Here's another picture of a saddle, the stirrups and the saddle and the gasket and the nuts. Here's another picture of is a clamp, the little patch. Figure 6. What is Figure 6? Figure 6 is the repair clamp. This is a repair clamp. They got your gasket, your end view, and the nut, and the bolt, and the pipe. And the center of the bolts is longer than the other nut. The center bolt is longer than the other bolts. Install the overcoupling clamp. Before installing over the coupling clamp, move the pipe, the coupling back and forth and up and down in the seal gaskets. If the action does not stop leaking, install over the clamp over the faulty coupling. Dig a hole under the leaking couple large enough to hold over the coupling. Swing the 5 bolts away from the coupling clamp. Open the coupling clamp, lubricating all exposed gaskets surfaces inside and its leaking coupling. Swing the 5 bolts back into place. Tighten the bolts in order as marked on the top of over the coupling clamp. This is a picture of a Figure 7 of the coupling repair. The overcoupling clamp with the bolts like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The pipe tighten sequence and stuff. The swing bolt and hinge. 8. Performing the repairs, such repairing damage of the pipeline section of the coupling and all major repairs of the direct supervision of the pipeline dispatch OIC. Now you're working with a connection replacing the components with the authorization pipeline dispatch OIC. Position fire extinguisher spill containers, closed valves in both sides of the pipe section, drain, recover production, remaining the damaged section of the line using the tap machine to tap into the pipeline, remove the fuel as flows, identify the components as listed in below. Here is another picture of this is Figure 8, which was, Figure 8 was talked about. Figure 8 is the performance of the pipeline pump. A drilling machine, a plug, and a bleed valve, 6-inch pipe saddle with the valve assembly with a 6.5/8 aluminum alloy pipeline with a 2-inch cam lock adapter with 2 ball valves and 2-inch adapter to the drilling machine. Performance steps. Hot tapping drilling machine with the ratchet crank. The hot tapping machine consists of the following components. The description: 1 hot tapping drilling machine with the ratchet crank, 1 plug 2-inch HHNPTs, 1 bleed valve, 1 pipe saddle 6-inch and 2-inch valve assembly, T valves, 2-inch cam lock adapters. Safety consideration: operation involving work pond pipe containing liquid fuels under the pressure and potential hazard, therefore unnecessary in the correct procedures of the following. Use the equipment to maintain a safe environment. We're up onto page 230. Performing steps operating the tapping machine when insulating the threading piping. Thread piping the components. Always use the Teflon tape sealant on the threads prior to making the connection. These will ensure the tight seal and perform the following steps in the install: the operating, the tapping of the machine. Determine the pipeline location at the line that will be tapped. Install the 6 inches on the bed. Put the saddle within 2 inches of the valve of the assembly at its point. Liberally apply all the seal grease on the seal inside the upper section of the 6-inch saddle and pipe it then seating into the pipe. Install the bleed of the valve inside of the T and the valve assembly. Be sure to place the teal sealant of the threads. Lead the valve into the open position. Remove the 2-inch from the upper section of the valve assembly while holding the calibrated body to the re-rotated the feed tube closely to extend the boring bore until the set of the screws are visible. Remove the set screws with a 1/8 of an inch hex and attach the holes to the cell. All the holder pilot and insert the holder pilot into the boring bar. All lines the holes in the boring bar holder in the pilot shank and insert the set screws and tighten walls 1/8 of an inch hex. Key that does not use the grease in the hole saw. And to retract the hole saw whole body of the tube, to rotate the feet of the tube the counterclockwise until the feet is the 0 mark of the calibrated body tube. At this point, the hole saw is completely retract to calculate the travel distance required of the pilot for the pilot drip to the contact tap. The correct measurements to avoid the tapping the bottom of the pipe and making the incoming tap of the making the A top of the T, top of the face of the T inch of the 2 of the top of the pipe, and just making the distance at the bottom of the adapter of the pilot drip tip and the dance at a distance A. The measurement should have been taken prior to the installation, prior to the into the T. Measure the thread of the making up each of the type is in carry of the done and the measuring thread of the length of the adapter, and prior to the installation subtracting the exposed thread and the length of after installation subtract it from the sum A plus B. The total figure should be the body of the tube reading as the pilot drill and the contact pipes. Drills and drill tips in the contact pipe. Make the mark on the calibrated tube body, the type of the tube measurement calculated in step 9. The feed of the tube of the should be measurement on the body as the pilot. The drip type contains the pipe as sealant. Tape of the thread after the type of the drill is and drill machine is adapted. The previously installed T close open vertical ball valve to ensure the valve functions properly. Be sure the full open position before continuing to the next step. But rotate the feed tube clockwise. Drill extended until the contact with the pipe. The feed should be marked placed on the body of the tube as step 10. The computed cutting distance is 0.5 inches. The cutting distance plus the initial reading of the body is tube of the pilot drill in contact. The final reading on the body tube when tapping is completed, marking the final reading of the body tube attached with the reading attaching the one half of the hex head. Best results will be obtained with the handle rotated to 360 degrees while turning in the clockwise direction only. Do not overflow the cause of the damage to the pilot of the drill tip or the hole. The rate of the advance of the hole saw is adjustment to tighten and loosen the feed adjustment knob at the top of the drilling machine. Loosen for the slower feed to tighten the faster feed as the pilot penetrates the pipe while allowed the fluid to comply with the fill line of fittingly. Be sure to bleed the valve in open and below the line contents of the bleed valve and to purge air to the closed bleed of the valve. When all the air is purged to the tap of the nearest completion, cutting the noise becoming louder and irregular. The cause of the coupon changing the shape of the bleed, leaving the stresses of the pipe is highly stressed in the tapping location. Hole saw may become locked and loosen a coupon in case of the loosen the feed adjustment knobs, retracting the holes and turning the feed tube onto the one revolution counterclockwise, retapping the slow feed to clean the bird of the hole. Alright, we're almost done here. When second march is reached on the body of the tap should be completed at the point of the feed tube. That should turn on as derived of the cap of the no clutch. The slipping advance is full at the feed of 1/8 per revolution, and the feed of the rate of the feed of the confirm the tap of the food. Tap is complete. Do not travel more than 3.5 inches after the pilot hip touches the pipe. If the distance exceeds the hole saw pilot drill will damage to penetrate the bottom of the pipe. Retract the hole saw, rotate the feed tube counterclockwise, and hole saw will retract the unit until the feed tube is marked on the body of the tube, until the feed tube comes to the firm stop. Closing and tapping hole, bleed off the pressure tap trapped in the valve of the adapter and the opening of the bleed of the valve and adapter. Remove the drilling machine, install the 2-inch hex head plug into the 2-inch T to enable the coupon to slide off the pilot drill. Coupon must be pushed off to allow unwiring to rotate as shown as in position 2. Remove the couplings and gaskets of the pipe section to be replaced, holding the new pipe alignment to the existing pipeline. Replace the couplings and gaskets necessary. If the old couplings and gaskets are damaged, replace the use of the following procedure. Swap ends of the pipeline coil into the ends of the pipeline section. Wire brush to remove the flacking paint and scales. Move out the other inside of the pipe grooves of the valve. Clean both halves of the pipe. New split ring coupling 6 inches. Repair clip the IPDS of the wire brush. Slip around gasket over one of the end of the other open section. Note the IPDS couplings have been pre-inserted gaskets along with the end of the pipe section. Slide gasket into the place over the ends of the 2 pipe sections and grease of 1 to 2 inches each of the both halves of the new split ring with the coupling of the automotive artillery grease. But place one of the half of the splitting coupling of 6 inches. Repair clamp the IPDS over the bottom half of the gasket pipeline, coating the coupling within the first with the film grease, but put in the coupling over the bolt. Slide the half of the split coupling, the 6 inches repair clamp of the IPDS over the 2 bolts. Hold the 2 halves of the coupling together to detach the nuts to the bolts. Alternate the tightening each nut to turns at the time of the coupling halves and evenly. Do not pinch the gasket. Test the pipeline to ensure that it does not leak. Open the gate of the valve slowly to press the brake. Press the back of the section. Observe the new section closely for the leaks. Repair, replace in the pipeline section as necessary. Evaluation, preparation, C-task and condition standards, applied risk management procedures, employee and environmental stewardship program measurement according to the task 101, 92 F 1413. Go or no go. Read and understand installation SOPs or OPRDs requirement requisition storing handling disposing of the hazardous materials as a go or no go where appropriate of the protective personnel equipment as are required. Perform service on the pipeline valves, go or no go. Conducted patrol on the pipelines to conduct damage, leak indication of the pilferages. Perform temporary repairs as required for the half saddle clamp, or the repair clamp, or the overcoupling clamp. 8. Perform repairs such as replacing damaged pipeline section in the coupling test and pipeline to ensure that it does not open the gate of the valve slowly to put the pressure back in the new section and observe the new section closely for the leaks. Repair replace pipeline section as necessary. Evaluation score soldiers and performance measured as passed. The score soldiers no go and the performance measured as failed. The soldier scores no go shows the soldier has what done wrong and how to do it correctly. The A form 52164R and FM 1067-1 FM 442. I'm going to stop.